All right, everyone, we are back, and what we're talking about in this video is basically just more about your assignment. So what can you do? Again, anything, as long as you choose a topic that is entertaining, that is intellectually stimulating, and is going to keep our interest. But if you want to do an informative speech, you can do a speech of explanation or a speech of demonstration. So a speech of explanation is going to be answering the questions who, what, why, where. And a speech of demonstration is going to be answering questions about how. If you want to get crafty and creative, and you certainly can, you can do a combination of those speeches. But since we are new to this, you certainly do not have to. But that is what an informative speech is answering. Who, what, why, where, and how. So, for organization for this speech, it's different, or I should say there's more options than what you guys did for your first introductory speech. For your first introductory speech, your organizational pattern or the outline that you created for your speech was called the topical order. So you can still use that if you would like to. If you want to do a speech that is a step-by-step process, or you're talking about maybe something in historical context and it follows a sequence, you're going to use something called the time order. It's the same setup as topical. The subpoints are just more events or steps. You can do a cause and effect speech, which I will show you, or you can do a pro-con speech. So these are your options for your informative speech, and I want you to follow these, and I'll show you where they are on Eagle. So where these are in Eagle, if you open up your informative speech, let's see if I can go to full screen. Okay, I can't. But these organizational patterns are embedded in your informative speech assignment, and they're down here, and you'll see the hyperlinks in blue. Since we're on this page, what I'm going to do is just go over the assignment, and then we'll get to those hyperlinks. So your informative speech assignment is 100 points. You will be able to effectively organize your informative speech in an intro, body, and conclusion, just like you did your last one. So it still has those three main parts. You will be able to integrate outside resources. So you need 5 oral citations from 5 different sources. And the reason that we have it from 5 different sources and we don't limit it to just 1 or 2 for this longer speech is because it limits the credibility of your content. So, and your topics. We want to make sure that we're diversifying our sources and we're pulling from multiple sources and not just 1 or 2. So we need 5 different sources, so 5 oral citations. You will be able to identify an informative speech from other forms of public presentation. So this means that it's not an introductory speech. It's not about how it relates to you. If you can choose a topic that you can use yourself as an example because you have a connection to it, awesome, but you are not an entire main point. I'll show you a really good example of that. It's a student from Belmont University who gives a speech about alopecia, and she explains what alopecia is, the different types of alopecia, but she herself has the condition alopecia, so she will sometimes use herself as an example, but she's not an entire main point. The speech is not about her. She just knows how to relate to it. So think about that. It's not an introductory speech, but it's also not a persuasive speech. You're not here to convince me that something is good, that something is bad, that something is right or wrong, that has value or doesn't have value, and you're certainly not asking me to make any sort of behavioral change, because once you cross that line, it's a persuasive speech. Stick to informative. Bring enough information to the table to let me make my own educated decision about this particular topic. All right, let's see. You will demonstrate progress of learned verbal skills while presenting an informative speech. So you want to use clear definitions. You want to be descriptive. Remember, use concrete words, appeal to the senses. A rhetorical device, that's talking about how verbal skills can be effective. So things like repetition. You will demonstrate progress of learned nonverbal skills while presenting the informative speech. So think about gestures, thinking about that use of space, using those walking transitions. For this particular speech, you do have to have professional dress, or you have to dress for your topic. What does that mean? If you are giving me a speech about Freddie Mercury, you can wear a Queen t-shirt, okay? Something that relates to the topic, but if you can't, and you also don't want it to be distracting, make sure that you are professional dress, okay? Business casual. Nonverbals also has to do with eye contact, okay? Specific requirements. This speech is about an object, process, event, or concept that you find interesting. Your organization is going to be an intro body with distinguishable main points and a conclusion. And these are the organizational patterns that are available to you. So right here, the second one, topical order, if you click it, it'll pull up a Google document and you will notice that it is the same organizational pattern that you used for your introductory speech. Okay. The first one here is cause and effect. This is what you use if you want to show the causes of something and trace the effects, but you don't want to present any solutions. So let's say, and please don't let it be this topic because it's overdone. This is just my example. Cause and effects of global warming. What causes global warming? What are the effects of global warming? Okay. Or if you're doing a health-related topic, what causes pancreatic cancer? What are the effects of it? What causes someone to have ADHD? What are the effects of it? Something like that. Pro-con. This is a tricky one. Not in terms of setup, but in terms of delivery. And what I mean by that in terms of delivery, you have to be really cautious of everything that you are doing, which means if you have 2 pros, you have to have 2 cons. If you speak for 3 minutes in the pro section, you should speak for 3 minutes in cons. If you have 3 academic articles citing and supporting your pro section, you need to have 3 academic articles cited for your con section. It has to be equal, because if it's not equal, then you're creating a bias and then you're trying to persuade your audience whether you realize it or not. So make sure if you do give a pro-con speech, think equal, okay? Be very clear with that. And then the last one is the time order or chronological. This one is often used if you are giving a how-to speech. It is the same setup as a topical order. It is just reminding you that you need to follow a sequence of events or a sequence of steps. But you'll notice it's still a topical setup. You have your main ideas with your subpoints, main ideas with your subpoints. And then if you scroll down, there it is. There's the conclusion. Your conclusion and your introduction are always the same. Okay, but those patterns are available for you in Google Docs because I don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. Just use those patterns. All right, so again, in bold, the above patterns are your only options, so please down and use as your guide. You will need to use at least 3 visual aids. Your visual aids will be on PowerPoint or actual tangible objects. Handouts do not count. They are distracting. Visual aids do not count as your 5 pieces of research. This is stuff we've talked about in the lecture videos. If you use PowerPoint to show your visual aids, create blank slides in between them. Again, this is something we've talked about. You can check out this visual aid help video that's hyperlinked in the assignment for you. Your outline and works cited are due the same day you speak before you speak, so make sure you submit that before your presentation. If you don't, it'll be considered late. You need a minimum of 5 sources cited in the content of your speech. Here's a reminder to use that oral citation guide. Remember, the credibility of your sources impacts your own credibility, so use magazines, books, newspapers, journals. If it's not a well-known source, you need to establish the credibility. So I know that we go to the internet for convenience, for comfort. I get it. The internet is wonderful and great, but it is not always the best place to seek out credible information. So make sure you are establishing the credibility of the source. And if you can't establish the credibility of the source, choose another source. Using quotes from your favorite authors, from Brainy Quotes or like Quote Garden, all those silly websites that just hold like a list of quotes about whatever it may be, a certain topic, or proverbs, and then putting that in your speech. That is not research. That is fluff. It helps make your speech sound memorable, and maybe adds an element of entertainment, but it is not effective research I will not count that as an oral citation. Make sure you're evenly supporting your speech, so don't lump all your sources in your causes, or don't lump all your sources in your first and main point. You also need to support your third point if you have one, so evenly support your speech. Note cards, remember you only get 2 5-minute note cards, and you can use front and back. If you use more than 2 note cards, you will lose points. Practice in order to meet 6 to 8 minute time limit. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you are signed up with the schedule, and this will be a hyperlink to that Google Doc that holds the schedule. Okay. All right. So it's 100 points, and make sure you check your semester's due date for that information, because again, this is just a generic explanation of the assignment. It's not for a specific semester. So make sure you check the due date on Eagle. If you have any questions, you can always reach out or come to my office, or we can set up a Zoom. And I'm looking forward to your speeches.